Hey everyone. Tonight we travel to a place where the silence is so profound, it feels like a sound itself. You're standing under a blanket of stars so thick and bright, it looks like spilled diamonds on black velvet. The air is crisp and cool, a welcome relief from the day's blistering sun. Below you, the vast, rugged landscape of canyons and mesas stretches into an ink-black infinity. There are no streetlights, no distant sirens, just the whisper of the wind through sagebrush and the distant cry of a coyote. Honestly, stripped of your smartphone and GPS, you probably wouldn't survive this for more than a day, let's be real. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. As always, I'd love to see where you're all tuning in from tonight, so please drop your city or country and the local time in the comments below. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The soft hum of the fan in your room seems to melt away, replaced by that desert wind. It's a lonely sound, carrying with it the scent of dust, pine, and something ancient. You are in the heart of the Dineta, the traditional homeland of the Navajo people. This isn't just a place on a map. It's a living, breathing entity, a sacred geography stretching over 27,000 square miles of what modern maps call Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. The monolithic rock formations that erupt from the flatlands aren't just stone to the people here. They are characters in creation stories, petrified giants, and sacred pillars holding up the sky. You feel impossibly small here, a fleeting guest in a land that measures time in geological epochs, not in the frantic ticking of a clock. You look at your hands, then back at the horizon, and realize your entire life is but a single grain of sand in this sprawling, silent desert. It is in this crucible of silence and space that a language was forged. The language of the Diné, the people, is called Diné Bizad. And it is nothing like the languages you're used to. It's not a simple collection of nouns and verbs that you can plug into a translator app. It's a language of breathtaking complexity, a tonal tapestry where a single word can change its meaning entirely based on the pitch of your voice. Verbs don't just describe an action. They are dynamic, fluid things, morphing to describe the shape, state, and direction of an object. To say, "hand me that rope," is different from saying, "hand me that stick," or "hand me that sheet of paper." The verb itself changes. For most of its history, it was a purely oral language, with no written alphabet. It was passed from grandparent to grandchild, a chain of memory stretching back into the mists of time. This made it nearly impenetrable to outsiders. Learning it wasn't a matter of studying flashcards. It required being born into it, of hearing its rhythms and cadences from the cradle. It's like trying to learn quantum physics by listening to a whale song. The data is there, but you lack the fundamental context to even begin decoding it. This linguistic isolation was mirrored by a geographical one. For centuries, the Diné lived in this challenging, beautiful, and unforgiving landscape. Historians still argue whether the extreme isolation of the Dineta was a deliberate choice for cultural preservation, or simply a result of geographical happenstance. Was it a fortress built of canyons and badlands to keep the outside world at bay? Or was it simply that, for a long time, no one else wanted this sun-scorched earth? Whatever the reason, the result was the same. A culture and a language that developed in a near-perfect vacuum, evolving along its own unique path, shielded from the homogenizing forces of the outside world. Here, history wasn't written in books, it was spoken in stories, sung in ceremonies, and woven into the very fabric of daily life. Your entire cultural identity, your understanding of the universe, and your place within it would be stored not on a hard drive, but in the collective memory of your elders. It's a staggering thought in an age where most of us can't remember a phone number that isn't saved in our contacts. You pull your thin blanket tighter around your shoulders, the cold of the high desert seeping into your bones. You imagine being a young Navajo boy in the 1930s, perhaps lying right here, watching these same indifferent stars. Your world is one of sheep and horses, of family and ceremony. Your concerns are the cycles of the seasons, the coming of the rains, and the well-being of your flock. The world beyond these sacred mountains is a place of myth and rumor, a noisy, chaotic abstraction that has little to do with the tangible reality of your life. You've heard stories, of course. You've seen the occasional automobile kicking up dust on a distant road, a strange metal beetle in your world of living things. You've been to the trading post and seen the manufactured goods from this other world, but it's not your world. You have no idea that thousands of miles away across an ocean you can barely imagine, ideologies are clashing like thunderheads. You don't know the names Hitler, or Tojo, or Churchill. The rumblings of war in places called Poland or Manchuria are as alien to you as the dark side of the moon. All you know is the wind, the stars, and the ancient, complex language that you speak without a second thought. The language that describes your entire universe. You don't realize it yet, but that language, your mother tongue, is about to become a weapon. A weapon more subtle, more effective, and more vital than any rifle or battleship in a war that will soon come crashing into your peaceful, silent world. The profound desert silence is shattered, not by a physical sound, but by a crackle of static from a radio speaker hundreds of miles away. It's Sunday, December 7th, 1941. The starlit sky you were just admiring is replaced by the harsh glare of a bare bulb in a frantic naval communications room. The air, once cool and clean, is now thick with the smell of stale coffee, sweat, and fear. You're no longer a shepherd boy contemplating the universe. You are a naval officer, and your universe is collapsing. Reports are flooding in, a chaotic staccato of panic and disbelief. Pearl Harbor is on fire. Battleships, once the indomitable symbols of American power, are sinking into the placid waters of the harbor, their decks slick with oil and blood. The message repeats, a nightmare chorus. Air raid on Pearl Harbor, this is not drill. In the weeks that follow, the nightmare deepens. You stand in a Washington, D.C. strategy room, the walls covered in maps of the Pacific. Every day, it seems, another red arrow advances, another island falls. Wake Island, Guam, the Philippines. The Japanese military moves with a speed and brutal efficiency that is simply staggering. It feels less like a conventional war and more like a contagion sweeping across the ocean. Military strategists still debate whether the speed of the Japanese advance was due more to their meticulous planning or to the Allies' catastrophic underestimation of their capabilities. In this room, surrounded by grim-faced men in uniform, the debate feels academic. The reality is a cascade of defeat. Every report that comes in is a fresh disaster. Every decoded transmission, a new heartbreak. And that's the crux of the problem, the transmissions. Communication is the central nervous system of a modern army. You need to coordinate ship movements, direct air support, and move troops with precision. But to do that, you need to talk to each other over the radio, and the moment you do, the enemy is listening. Every message is a potential death sentence. You and your colleagues use complex cipher machines, marvels of engineering with spinning rotors and intricate wiring designed to scramble messages into gibberish. The problem is, the Japanese are masters of cryptanalysis. Their intelligence units are staffed with brilliant, patient, and relentless codebreakers. It feels like you're playing a high-stakes chess match where your opponent can read your mind. You send an order for a convoy to Zig, and a fleet of submarines is waiting for them at the Zag. It's like passing a secret note in class, only to realize the teacher not only intercepted it but has also published it in the school newspaper. The frustration is maddening because, in a supreme twist of irony, your side has had its own stunning successes. You've heard the whispers from the high command about a project codenamed Magic. American cryptanalysts, working in secret, managed to break Japan's most sophisticated diplomatic cipher, a machine the Americans nicknamed Purple. For months, Washington has been reading the sensitive communications of Japanese ambassadors. But that's the diplomatic channel. It's strategic, high-level intelligence. It's like knowing the enemy's long-term business plan while having no idea what they're doing on the factory floor today. The battlefield codes, the tactical ciphers used by infantry captains and destroyer commanders, are a different beast entirely. They are less complex than Purple, but they are changed with maddening frequency. By the time your team in Hawaii manages to painstakingly decrypt a message directing a patrol to a certain grid square, the patrol has already been there, walked into an ambush, and been wiped out. The information arrives just in time to be an epitaph. The human cost of this intellectual arms race is written in the casualty lists that grow longer each day. A message is intercepted, a position is revealed, and a field hospital is bombed. A naval code is cracked, a fleet's route is exposed, and thousands of sailors are lost to the cold, dark water. You see the reports, the cold black and white type detailing ships lost and men missing, and you understand that this war is being fought not just with bullets and bombs, but with patterns and probabilities. It's a war of whispers, and right now your whispers are being shouted from the rooftops. The pressure to find a solution is immense. In meeting after meeting, ideas are thrown around. Some are desperate, some are outlandish. You need a code that is fast, accurate, and above all, unbreakable. A code that can be used in the heart of a firefight by a soldier caked in mud, half-deafened by explosions with no time for cumbersome machinery or complex charts. Someone mentions using a rare language, but that's been tried. The army had experimented with using Comanche soldiers in Europe during World War I. But there are too few speakers. And what if the enemy has somehow found one? What if a German or Japanese academic happens to be a world expert in that specific obscure dialect? It's too risky. The military needs something that isn't just difficult or obscure. It needs a system that is conceptually alien to the enemy. They need the 1940s equivalent of a password that requires two-factor authentication, a retinal scan, and the ghost of your great-grandmother to approve it. And right now all they have is 12345. The search is on for a miracle, a key that no one else in the world could possibly possess. Into this room of polished brass, stale cigar smoke, and quiet desperation walks a man who seems utterly out of place. He's in his late 40s, wearing a civilian suit that looks a little rumpled, and he carries a briefcase instead of a sidearm. He doesn't have the rigid posture of a military man. He looks more like a high school principal or a city planner. You're a young aide in the corner of the room, and you watch as the generals exchange weary, skeptical glances. In the month since Pearl Harbor, they've been inundated with crackpot ideas from armchair strategists. This man, Philip Johnston, feels like just another one. He introduces himself not as a cryptographer from some shadowy intelligence agency, but as a civil engineer from Los Angeles. An engineer from LA pitching a solution to a national security crisis is like your dentist offering to fix your car's transmission. The confidence is noted, but your expectations are, let's say, managed. But then, Johnston starts to speak, and the story he tells silences the shuffling papers and quiet coughs. He wasn't born into the world of slide rules and blueprints. He was born into the world you visited earlier, the vast, silent expanse of the Navajo Nation. He explains that his parents were Protestant missionaries, and from the age of 4, he was sent to live and learn among the Navajo. His childhood playmates were Diné children. He didn't just learn a few phrases of their language, he absorbed it. He chased sheep with them, shared meals in their circular homes, called hogans, and listened to their stories under that same blanket of stars. He learned Diné Bizad not from a book, because there were no books, but through the only method that works: total, complete immersion. As he speaks, you realize you're looking at one of the rarest people on Earth, a non-native who is a fluent conversational speaker of the Navajo language. His journey from that dusty reservation to this high-stakes meeting was a winding one. You learn he's a veteran of the First World War, so he understands the brutal realities of combat and the critical need for secure communications. After the war, he put his mind to work as an engineer, wrestling with the complex systems that kept the city of Los Angeles running. He was a man who understood both ancient cultures and modern logistics. The idea, he explains, came to him when he read a newspaper article about the military experimenting with using Native American soldiers from the Comanche tribe to send messages. It was a good idea, but he knew it had a flaw. There were still too many people outside the tribe, including some in Germany, who had studied those languages academically. But Navajo, that was different. He knew with a certainty that filled the room that it was the key. This is his pitch. He stands before these powerful men and lays out the strategic beauty of the language he learned as a boy. He describes its alien grammar, where verbs are the kings and nouns are mere afterthoughts. He explains its tonal quality, where the word bizad can mean language or his mouth, depending on the pitch. He emphasizes that with no written alphabet and no linguistic relatives in Europe or Asia, it would be as indecipherable to Japanese cryptographers as ancient Martian. To break it, the enemy wouldn't just need a dictionary, they'd need a Navajo childhood. They'd need to have spent years in the canyons of Arizona, listening to the elders, absorbing the rhythms and stories that give the language its soul. As you listen to him, his face alight with passion, you have to wonder about his true motivation. Biographers still ponder whether Johnston's advocacy was driven purely by patriotic duty, or also by a deeper, lifelong desire to see the Navajo culture he so admired receive the respect it deserved from a government that had so often been its oppressor. The initial reaction from the generals is a heavy, thick silence. You can almost hear them thinking, our multi-million-dollar German-engineered cipher machines have failed, and this man's grand solution is a language? It feels almost insulting in its simplicity. They are men who trust steel, mathematics, and machinery. They are being asked to place the fate of thousands of soldiers in a spoken tongue, from a people, many of them likely viewed through a lens of condescending stereotypes. One of them clears his throat, about to dismiss Johnston, but the desperation that hangs in the air like a fog gives him pause. Every other idea has failed. Every conventional method has been countered. Johnston's idea might be a long shot, but it's the only shot they haven't taken. Major General Clayton B. Vogel, the commanding general of the Amphibious Corps, Pacific Fleet, leans forward, his expression shifting from skepticism to intense curiosity. He looks at Johnston, then at his fellow officers, and makes a decision. They will grant him a demonstration. If he can prove this unbreakable code works, they'll listen. He just completed the most high-stakes elevator pitch in history, and his investors are the United States Marine Corps. As Johnston gathers his papers and gives a respectful nod, you watch him walk out of the room. A lone civilian who has just been handed the slimmest of chances to change the course of the war. The news of Philip Johnston's idea travels from the carpeted offices of Washington, D.C., and transforms into a simple, functional flyer tacked to the wall of a dusty trading post on the reservation. You see it while buying flour and coffee. In stark black letters, the United States Marine Corps announces it is seeking Navajo men, fluent in both English and their native tongue, for a special assignment. The details are sparse, mentioning only communications and special duty. It's vague, mysterious, and for you, a young man whose world has been circumscribed by the 4 sacred mountains, it's a lightning bolt. You take the paper down and fold it carefully, the crisp edges feeling alien in your work-roughened hands. This piece of paper is a doorway to that other world, the one you've only heard about on the radio, the one that is now at war. Back at your family's Hogan, the circular home of packed earth and juniper logs, you discuss the flyer. Your elders are quiet, their faces etched with a wisdom that comes from navigating generations of hardship and broken promises from the Bilagana, the white people. Your father looks at the fire, not at you, as he speaks of the Nabahi, the warrior tradition of the Diné. He reminds you that your people have always been fighters, defenders of this land. Your mother's silence is heavier, filled with a fear she doesn't voice. Historians and family members still discuss the complex motivations of these first volunteers. Was it pure American patriotism, a warrior tradition, economic necessity, or a simple desire for adventure? For you, it's a tangled knot of all those things. You feel a duty to protect this land, even if it means fighting for the very government that has taken so much of it away. You know the pay from the military would help your family. But deeper than that, there's a restless curiosity, a yearning to see what lies beyond the horizon. The greatest irony, and it's a bitter one, hits you as you fill out the enlistment forms. The recruiter, a man with a sunburned neck and an impatient pen, asks you to confirm your fluency in Navajo. You nod, and a memory flashes through your mind. You're a small boy again, shivering in the dormitory of a government-run boarding school hundreds of miles from home. The teachers, with their severe faces and rigid rules, are on a mission to civilize you, which means stripping you of your culture. You remember a friend whispering a joke to you in Diné Bizad, and the sting of the ruler across your knuckles. You remember having your mouth washed out with harsh lye soap for speaking your own language. They called it a savage tongue, a primitive relic that had to be erased for your own good. And now, A few short years later, that same government desperately needs that savage tongue. They are not just allowing you to speak it, they are recruiting you because of it. It's the universe's ultimate cosmic joke, but you don't feel like laughing. You're not alone. In the spring of 1942, you stand in a long line with other young Navajo men at the recruitment depot at Fort Wingate. You are all lean and wiry, with the quiet watchfulness of people who have spent their lives under an open sky. You go through the strange rituals of induction, the prodding and poking of the medical exam, the endless forms that reduce your life to a series of boxes to be checked. You are officially sworn in. You are now a United States Marine. You are one of the first 29. They don't tell you that you're about to become a living, breathing encryption machine. They just tell you that you are essential to the war effort and that your work will be a secret. The bus ride away from home is the hardest part. The farewells were quiet and heavy. An uncle, a medicine man, performed a blessing ceremony for you, the smoke from the cedar carrying his prayers for your safety. You can still feel the lingering warmth of your mother's hand on your arm. Now you press your face against the cool glass of the bus window, watching the familiar red mesas and sacred peaks dissolve into the shimmering distance. A plume of dust follows the bus like a ghost of the life you're leaving behind. You look around at the other 28 faces, all trying to project an air of tough nonchalance, but you can see the same flicker of fear in their eyes. The mood is like the first day of a terrifying new school, one where the final exam involves dodging bullets. The bus rumbles on, a mechanical beast carrying you out of your ancient, timeless world and into the frantic, ticking clock of the 1940s. The landscape flattens and turns green. The cities you pass through are a chaotic jumble of noise, smoke, and strangers, a stark contrast to the profound quiet you've known your whole life. You and your new brothers in arms finally pull through the gates of Camp Elliott in San Diego, California. The journey is over. You step off the bus into the blinding Pacific sun, the air thick with the unfamiliar smell of salt, and you get your first look at a Marine drill instructor, his face contorted in a permanent snarl. He opens his mouth and a torrent of sound hits you like a physical blow. A single, silent thought forms in your mind. He seems energetic. That energetic drill instructor becomes the sun your entire universe orbits for the next 13 weeks. Your life shrinks to a series of primal, repetitive tasks. You run until your lungs feel like they're full of broken glass. You crawl through mud pits under live machine gun fire. You learn how to disassemble your M1 Garand rifle in the dark and put it back together before the DIS flashlight beam finds you fumbling. You and the other 28 Navajo recruits are just Marines now, indistinguishable in your green utilities from the farm boys from Iowa or the city kids from Brooklyn. The shared misery of boot camp is a powerful forge, melting away your old identities and recasting you all as brothers. The drill instructors scream at everyone equally. Their voice is a constant, gravelly roar that seems to have only two settings: loud and, "Is that the sound of a jet engine in my ear?" It's a brutal, exhausting, and strangely effective process. You are being systematically broken down, so you can be rebuilt in the image of a United States Marine. After graduation, when the other new Marines are being shipped off to their various units, you and your 28 brothers are pulled aside. The secrecy that has been a vague shadow over your recruitment now becomes a thick, impenetrable wall. You are transported to Camp Pendleton and led not to a standard barracks, but to a guarded, isolated classroom. The windows are blacked out. Military police stand at the door. Inside, the mood is tense and quiet. A handful of communications officers are waiting for you, their faces grimly serious. This is it. This is the moment you learn the true nature of your special duty. An officer explains the crisis. The Japanese can break every code the military has. The Corps needs a new one, a code that is fast, accurate, and completely unbreakable. And you, he says, looking around at your faces, are going to create it. The officers unroll a long list of English words on a table. It's a glossary of modern warfare, a vocabulary of destruction. Tank, submarine, battleship, grenade, platoon, reconnaissance. These are concepts as alien to your native tongue as a spacecraft. Your task is to take this list and translate it into Navajo. But a direct, Literal translation is impossible. There is no word for machine gun in a language developed to describe the movement of sheep and the changing of seasons. So you have to get creative. You have to build a bridge of metaphor between your world and this new violent one. You and your comrades huddle together, and the room, once silent, fills with the soft, flowing sounds of Dine Bizad. You start brainstorming. A tank with its slow, lumbering movement and hard shell. You decide to call it Che-da-gahi, tortoise. A dive bomber which screams down from the sky becomes Guinea, the chicken hawk. A submarine moving unseen beneath the waves is a beshlo, an ironfish. Battleships are lotso, whales. You are painting pictures with your words, transforming the cold machinery of war into a bestiary drawn from the natural world you know so well. Initially, the Marine officers observing you think this is the extent of the plan. A simple substitution code. A dictionary of Navajo terms for military hardware. But you and the other recruits quickly realize the weakness in that. A code breaker who is patient enough, who can intercept enough messages, can eventually spot patterns in any substitution cipher. You discuss it amongst yourselves in your own language, the words flying too quickly and with too much nuance for the officers to follow. Then, one of you steps forward and explains. You need more layers. You need more complexity. Military historians continue to discuss how much of the code's eventual genius was prompted by Marine Corps oversight versus how much arose organically from the recruits' innate understanding of their own language as subtleties. You know the truth. The real strength of the code came from you. You proposed the ideas that would make it truly unbreakable. It's a bold move, telling your commanding officers that their plan needs work. But you know the language. You know its hidden strengths. The atmosphere in that locked room is electric. For the first time, your language isn't a source of shame or a reason for punishment. It's a vital national asset. The words that were beaten out of you in boarding school are now classified top secret. You work for 13 hours a day, fueled by lukewarm coffee and a burning sense of purpose, carefully crafting a lexicon of over 200 terms. This is followed by the most grueling task of all: memorization. You cannot take a code book into combat. The entire dictionary, every single term, must be burned into your memory, ready for instant, flawless recall under the unimaginable stress of a firefight. You drill relentlessly, running mock radio transmissions back and forth across the room. Chicken Hawk at Grid 47. Send 3 tortoises to support. It sounds like nonsense, but it's the sound of a new kind of weapon being sharpened. You've basically been given the textbook for the most important final exam of your life, with the caveat that the textbook will be confiscated and the exam will take place during an earthquake. The code is finally ready. And so are you. You've done it. You and your 28 brothers have created a formidable lexicon, a dictionary translating the hellscape of modern war into the familiar language of the natural world. You've memorized every entry, from Che-da-gahi, tortoise, for tank, to Lotso, whale, for battleship. There's a palpable sense of accomplishment in the locked classroom. But as you run through drills, a critical flaw in the system begins to emerge, a hole big enough to sink a convoy. You and the other recruits discuss it quietly, then one of you approaches the liaison officer. The problem is simple. What do you do with the words that aren't on the list? How do you transmit a proper name, like a commander's surname or a specific objective? If you need to coordinate an attack on an island named Makan, you can't just shout the Navajo word for island and hope for the best. The code, as brilliant as it is a phrase book. To be truly effective, it needs to be a language, capable of expressing any thought or name required. It needs an alphabet. Back to the chalkboards you go. The first most obvious idea is to assign one Navajo word to each of the 26 letters of the English alphabet. A for ant, B for bear, C for cat, and so on. But you and your comrades, now thinking like the code breakers you're trying to defeat, immediately spot the weakness. If every A is represented by the Navajo word for ant, Walachi, then any enemy cryptographer listening in would quickly spot the repetition. A word like Java would come across as something ant, and the pattern would be a glaring clue. Frequency analysis, counting how often letters or words appear, is the bread and butter of code breaking. A simple one-to-one alphabet would be handing the enemy the key to the whole system. The solution you devise is one of elegant, deceptive complexity. For the most common letters in the English language, like E, T, A, O, I, N, S, you decide to assign multiple Navajo words. For the letter A, you choose Walachi, ant, but also Belasana, apple, and Saynil, axe. For S, you can use Diba, sheep, or Klizzy, snake. This is a masterstroke. Now, when you spell that same word, Java, you could transmit the Navajo words for jackass, ant, victory, apple. The receiving code talker would hear the 4 distinct words, translate them in his head to their English equivalents, take the first letter of each, and write down Java. If you sent the same message again, you could transmit jackass, apple, victory, axe. The underlying Navajo transmission would be completely different, but the decrypted message would be identical. It is like having a keyboard where the A key changes its symbol every time you press it. It's a system designed to create chaos for the listener, but perfect clarity for the initiated. This is where the true genius of the code lies, and it's a point of endless fascination. Cryptographers still debate whether the code's true strength lay in the complex lexicon or in the unpredictable multi-word spelling system that defied frequency analysis. In that classroom, you don't care about future debates. You just know this feels right. You continue building the alphabet, but you hit some strange roadblocks. The Navajo language, Diné Biza, doesn't have sounds for every English letter. There is no J or V sound, for example. So you get creative. For J, you use the word for jackass, Tkele Chogi. For V, you use Ake Diglini, meaning victory. You're not just translating, you're inventing and adapting. This creativity extends to proper nouns. You can't spell out Germany every time, it's too slow, so you give it a code name, Beshbechahi, which literally means iron hat, a perfect, concise description of the iconic German Stahlhelm helmet. Japan becomes Beina Alitsosi, braided hair. America is Nehima, our mother. The mental load this places on you is astronomical. When a message comes crackling over the radio, it's a stream of seemingly random Navajo words. In a split second, your brain has to perform a complex triage. Is the word you just heard Guinea, a lexicon word meaning dive bomber? Or is it part of a spelled-out word where G stands for Klizzy Yazzie, goat? You have to listen to the context, the flow of the other words, and make an instantaneous decision. One mistake could change the meaning of a message entirely, turning attack grid XY into retreat from grid XZ. The pressure is immense. The multitasking required would make a modern-day air traffic controller break out in a cold sweat. You have become a human encryption engine, running 2 complex programs in your head simultaneously, all while people are actively trying to kill you. With the 2-part system, lexicon and alphabet, complete, the code is finally whole. It's a beautiful, intricate thing, a weapon woven from memory, culture, and ingenuity. You and the other 28 men are the sole proprietors of this incredible secret. You are the only ones on the entire planet who can speak it, hear it, and understand it. You've drilled for months, practicing until the words flow effortlessly, until the translation in your mind is faster than thought. But all of this has been theory. It has all happened within the safe-guarded walls of a classroom in California. The real test is coming. Soon you will not be transmitting practice messages across a quiet room, but sending real life-or-death orders across a battlefield ringing with the shriek of artillery and the chatter of machine gun fire. The final exam is about to begin. The gentle rocking of a California training barracks is replaced by the violent, nauseating swell of the Pacific Ocean. You are one of thousands of Marines packed into the hot, humid belly of a troop transport ship, the air thick with the smells of diesel, sweat, and nervous tension. For weeks, all you've seen is an endless expanse of gray water. Now, on the horizon, a dark green smudge appears. An island. A name is passed through the ranks in hushed, anxious whispers. Guadalcanal. This is not a drill. This is not a classroom exercise. You sling your heavy radio on your back, check your M1 Garand, and exchange a silent, steadying look with the other code talkers in your unit. The theoretical part of your education is over. The final practical exam is about to begin, and the grading is pass-fail, with fail being a shallow grave in foreign soil. The transfer to the Higgins boat is a chaotic scramble down a rope net. You recrammed shoulder to shoulder with men whose faces are pale and slick with a mixture of sea spray and fear. The boat slaps against the waves, and the roar of the engine is punctuated by the deeper, terrifying boom of naval artillery firing over your heads toward the shore. The ramp drops with a deafening clang, and you're plunged into a world of pure chaos. You leap into chest-deep, surprisingly warm water, your first priority to hold your rifle and your precious radio gear above the surface. The beach is a nightmare landscape from a fever dream. Smoke chokes the air, palm trees are shredded into splinters, and the sand is pitted with explosion craters. The sound is a physical assault, a constant, overlapping roar of engines, gunfire, explosions, and screaming. You just put one foot in front of the other, moving toward the relative cover of the jungle's edge. Your mind a blank slate of pure survival instinct. You finally reach the makeshift command post, a frantic hub of activity in a hastily dug trench. A colonel with weary, bloodshot eyes gives you a cursory glance. He sees a young Navajo man, barely out of his teens, holding a radio handset. His gaze shifts to the unit's M209 cipher machine, a clunky mechanical metal box that weighs 10 pounds and takes an eternity to operate. You can see the skepticism on his face. He trusts the machine. He trusts its gears and rotors. He does not trust this new, unproven method that relies on what sounds to him like gibberish. The look he gives you is the same one a master watchmaker might give a sundial. With a sigh of resignation, he hands a runner a written message. The runner gives it to you. It's an order to redirect an artillery barrage. "Let's see what you can do, son," the colonel says, his tone making it clear he expects very little. You take a breath, the air tasting of cordite and damp earth. You press the transmit button, the familiar static hiss a strange comfort in the chaos. Then you speak. You speak the words of your childhood, the language of the sacred mountains. The words feel both utterly alien and profoundly right in this place. You transmit the grid coordinates for the new target, spelling it out. Sheep Uncle Ram Ice Bear Ant, your voice calm and steady. A stream of pure Dene flowing into the microphone. You follow up with the command, using the lexicon words for the type of shells and the timing. On the other end of the line, miles away, another Navajo code talker listens, his ear pressed to his own receiver. His mind performs the lightning-fast translation you drilled for months. He scribbles the decrypted message on a pad and hands it to his artillery officer. The entire process, from the moment the colonel handed you the paper to the moment the artillery captain had a new target, takes less than 25 seconds. A message that would have taken the M209 operator at least half an hour to encrypt and transmit. A few minutes later, a succession of whistles tears through the air, followed by a string of thunderous explosions that shake the very ground you're standing on, exactly on the new target. The skeptical colonel's jaw hangs slightly agape. He looks from the plume of smoke in the distance back to you and then at the useless cipher machine sitting in the mud. He grabs another message and then another. Historians still debate the precise moment the High Command realized the code's full potential, but most agree its performance at Guadalcanal turned skepticism into fervent demand. In that moment, you go from being a military curiosity to the most vital communications asset in the entire 1st Marine Division. You've suddenly become the most valuable soldier on the beach. Commanders start demanding a code talker for their own platoons. You work for hours, a living conduit for the nerve impulses of the battle. Calling in air support, Guinea, directing tank movements, Chedegahi, reporting enemy positions. But you're a Marine first. In the lulls between transmissions, you dig your foxhole deeper, you pass ammunition, you scan the dense jungle for any sign of movement. The fear is a constant metallic taste in your mouth, but when you hold that handset, a different feeling takes over, a cold, clear sense of purpose. The language your government once tried to erase is now the very thing keeping your fellow Marines alive. It's a shield forged from ancient words, an unbreakable barrier protecting them all. The irony is so profound it's almost funny. Your old boarding school teachers always told you to use your words. You're pretty sure this isn't what they had in mind. Miles away from the mud and chaos of Guadalcanal, you sit in the sweltering, oppressive heat of a concrete bunker in Rabaul, the nerve center of Japanese operations in the South Pacific. The air is so humid you feel like you're breathing water, and the constant hum of vacuum tubes from the radio equipment is the soundtrack to your life. You are a lieutenant in the Imperial Japanese Army's Intelligence Division, a master of signals intelligence. You are a patient, methodical, and brilliant cryptographer. For months, you and your team have been the ghosts in the American machine. You plucked their naval codes from the air before the Battle of the Coral Sea. You read their army communications in the Philippines like a morning newspaper. You have come to view the Americans as formidable fighters but rather clumsy communicators, their codes being complex but ultimately solvable puzzles created by minds that think like yours. There is a system, there is a pattern, and with enough time and intellect, any pattern can be discerned. Then in the autumn of 1942, something new appears on the Marine Corps radio frequencies. It's not the rhythmic clicking of Morse, nor the distorted mechanical whine of a voice scrambler. It's a human voice, speaking with perfect clarity. But the language is an impossibility. You press the headphones tight against your ears, leaning closer to the receiver as if proximity will somehow breed comprehension. The words that come through are a cascade of soft and harsh sounds, with abrupt stops and flowing tonal shifts unlike anything you have ever heard. You hear syllables that sound like Che Dagahi and Beshlo and Guinea. You meticulously transcribe them phonetically, but the result is just a page of meaningless symbols. You feel a prickle of professional curiosity. A new American code. This should be interesting. Days turn into weeks and your curiosity curdles into a maddening, obsessive frustration. You and your team work around the clock. You record hours of the transmissions. You run every kind of analysis you can think of. You search for repeated phrases, for patterns, for any kind of structure. But there is none. A transmission that seems to be about an artillery strike will use one set of words. The next day, another message that results in the exact same type of artillery strike will use a completely different set of words. It's as if the code is alive, changing its own rules from moment to moment. It is a violation of the fundamental principles of cryptography. It is like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that spontaneously changes its colors. Your superiors are demanding an answer. The American Marines are suddenly operating with a terrifying new level of coordination. Ambushes that should have been successful are being thwarted. Japanese positions that should have been secret are being obliterated by pinpoint-accurate artillery. This new code is clearly the cause, and your failure to break it is costing Japanese lives. In tense meetings, you and your fellow intelligence officers theorize. Could it be a synthetic language invented just for the war? Too complex to teach quickly? A simple substitution of a known language? The phonetics don't match anything. Someone suggests it might be a Native American language. The theory is plausible, but it's a strategic dead end. There are hundreds of distinct indigenous languages in the United States, most of them unwritten and known only to a dwindling number of speakers. How could you possibly identify which one? And even if you could, where in the Empire of Japan would you find a native speaker to act as a translator? It is a locked room with a key that may not even exist on your side of the planet. The sound itself begins to have a psychological effect. Intelligence analysts still theorize about the psychological impact on Japanese forces of hearing the Navajo language. Was it merely a tactical frustration? Or did the strange organic sounds contribute to a sense of fighting a truly alien and unpredictable foe? You feel it in your bones. The mechanical ciphers of the past felt like a contest between men and machines. This feels different. The fluid, musical sounds are unsettling. It's like listening to the chatter of strange animals, a language of the earth that you are completely divorced from. You start to wonder if the Americans are just broadcasting the ravings of a madman as a form of psychological warfare. One intercepted message you obsess over is a short, distinct burst of words. Dibe, ake diglini, tsenil, ake diglini, dibe yazi. You play the recording over and over. Sheep, victory, axe, victory, lamb. It sounds like a peasant's fever dream. It will be decades before you could possibly know that you were listening to the spelling of a single word. You finally have to admit defeat. You have collected reams of transcripts, hundreds of recordings, and you are no closer to breaking the code than you were the day you first heard it. You, the man who could once read the enemy's mind, have been rendered deaf and blind. The Americans are talking in plain sight, and you can do nothing to stop them. You take off your headphones, the silence of the humid bunker pressing in on you. The phantom sounds of the code still echo in your mind. You have a report to write to the High Command in Tokyo. It is the most difficult report of your career. You have to inform them that the enemy has a new weapon, a whisper that is louder than their bombs, and it is, by all accounts, completely unbreakable. The adrenaline-fueled chaos of the Guadalcanal campaign has slowly subsided, replaced by the grinding, monotonous reality of jungle occupation. You are no longer the wide-eyed boy who stumbled off the Higgins boat. You're a veteran now. You've learned the geography of a foxhole, the different sounds of incoming mortars, and the profound, bone-deep exhaustion that follows a firefight. Your radio has become an extension of your body. Its weight a familiar burden, its handset a direct link to the survival of the men around you. The code has performed flawlessly, a shield of words that has saved countless lives. But you know that in the world of military brass, battlefield results are sometimes not enough. There are always doubters, men in clean uniforms far from the front lines who need proof on paper. One sweltering afternoon, you're summoned to division headquarters. It's an unusual order, and as you make your way to the command tent, you try to guess the reason. When you enter, you see Major General Rupertus himself, along with a naval intelligence officer, and sitting on a simple wooden stool across from them is a captured Japanese officer. The air in the tent is thick with unspoken tension. The prisoner is not what you expected. He is clean-shaven, his uniform is neat despite his captivity, and he sits with a ramrod straight posture. He looks intelligent and observant. The intelligence officer gives you a brief summary. The prisoner is Major Seiji Su, a signals expert, and most importantly, he was educated in the United States. He holds a degree from an American university and speaks flawless, unaccented English. He is, in essence, the perfect test subject, the enemy's best-case scenario for a codebreaker, a man who understands both Japanese intelligence and American culture. The general explains the purpose of this strange meeting. While the code has been a success, they want to conduct a final, definitive test to confirm its impenetrability for the official record. It is still a matter of some debate among military historians, whether this test was a genuine attempt to find a weakness or a piece of political theater designed by Rupertus to silence any remaining doubters in the high command. To you, in that moment, the reason is irrelevant. This is a challenge and a chance to prove beyond any doubt the value of your language. A reel-to-reel tape recorder is placed on the table. Your orders are simple. Transmit a standard tactical message to another code talker unit a few miles away. The entire exchange will be recorded and played for Major Su. You feel the weight of the moment as you sit down at the radio set. The eyes of the general, the intelligence officer, and the Japanese major are all on you. You take a steadying breath, click the handset, and begin to speak. You transmit a message about the relocation of a supply dump, a mundane but realistic piece of battlefield chatter. The familiar words of Dene Bazad flow from you, the sounds of home echoing strangely in this humid jungle tent. Ironfish, chicken hawk, tortoise. Within seconds, your counterpart radios back a perfect confirmation. The entire exchange is captured on the magnetic tape. The intelligence officer rewinds the tape and presses play. The strange, flowing sounds of your language fill the tent. Major Su leans forward slightly, listening with an expression of intense concentration. The recording finishes. He says nothing. The officer plays it again. Then a third time. The interrogation begins. Major, you are an expert in signals. What can you tell us about this transmission? The American officer asks. Major Su takes a slow, deliberate breath. I can tell you it is not a machine cipher, he says, his English crisp. The cadences are those of a human language. Is it some form of scrambled English? No. The phonetic structure is all wrong. It is not based on any European language I have ever studied. The questions continue, probing for any hint of a pattern, any recognizable element, any crack in the wall of sound. Finally, the officer asks the ultimate question. Can you decipher it? The major is silent for a full minute. his gaze distant. He seems to be replaying the sounds in his mind one last time. He then looks directly at the American general, and for a fleeting second, his eyes meet yours. There is no animosity in his look, only the quiet, weary acknowledgement of a fellow professional who has been thoroughly outmaneuvered. "No," he says, the single word landing with the force of a gavel. "We have been listening to these transmissions for months. We believe it is a language, but it belongs to no people we know of. We cannot decipher it. It is, to us, just meaningless noise." In the corner of the tent, you stand perfectly still, your face an impassive marine mask. But inside, a wave of profound pride washes over you. This is it. The ultimate validation. The enemy's own expert has just declared your language, the language you were once punished for speaking, to be a perfect, unbreakable weapon. It's the wartime equivalent of your greatest rival admitting in public that you're simply on another level. You've just received a 5-star review from the only critic who truly matters. The general smiles. The test is over. The code is officially invincible. The resounding success of the code on Guadalcanal, certified by the enemy's own admission of defeat, sends a shockwave up the Marine Corps chain of command. The verdict is in. The experiment is over. It's time for mass production. The urgent request comes down from the high command, echoing in offices from Pearl Harbor to Washington, D.C. We need more of these Navajo. Suddenly, the quiet, cautious recruitment of the first 29 gives way to a full-blown mobilization effort across the vast expanse of the Navajo Nation. Recruiters now travel the dusty roads with a singular purpose, seeking out young, healthy men who are fluent speakers of both the ancient mother tongue and the language of the modern military. The exact nature of the mission remains a closely guarded secret, but the word is out that the Diné are needed for a special, vital role in communications. Hundreds of young men answer the call, leaving their flocks and their families to follow in the footsteps of the pioneers. To handle this influx, the ad hoc classroom at Camp Pendleton is formalized into a dedicated, top-secret institution, the Navajo Code Talker School. You are one of these new recruits, and you quickly realize this is no ordinary military training. After the hell of standard boot camp, you are segregated with your fellow Navajo and escorted to a secure compound. There you are initiated into the secret. You are handed a list of words, now expanded to over 400 terms, that represents the entire vocabulary of the Pacific War. This list is your Bible, your textbook, and your burden. Your job is to commit every single entry, from WWII ant for the letter A to Naastsosi mouse for platoon, to perfect infallible memory. There is no room for almost or I think so. In this line of work, a single mistake can misdirect an artillery strike or betray a position, costing the lives of an entire company of Marines. The training is relentless, a brutal mental marathon designed to forge your mind into a weapon. The instructors, some of whom are veterans from the Guadalcanal campaign, drill you for 12 to 15 hours a day. They shout messages at you, and you must translate them instantly. They time you with stopwatches. A simple 3-line message must be encrypted, transmitted, and accurately decrypted in under 20 seconds. Any hesitation, any fumbling, is met with harsh correction. You practice until your head throbs, until the Navajo words for destroyers and flamethrower are more familiar to you than the names of your own cousins. Military trainers still analyze the Code Talker program, debating whether its ultimate success was due to the linguistic genius of the code itself, or the sheer mental fortitude and memorization capacity of the young men recruited to use it. As you sit in that classroom, you're certain it was 100% of both. One of the greatest challenges isn't just knowing the code, but hearing it. The primitive radio equipment of the 1940s was a nightmare of static, hiss, and interference. To simulate this, your instructors become masters of auditory torture. While you're trying to decipher a critical message, they will blast recordings of machine gun fire, artillery explosions, and the roar of airplane engines through loudspeakers in the classroom. They will deliberately introduce static into the radio channel, forcing you to learn how to pick the subtle tonal shifts of your language out of a hurricane of noise. It's an almost impossible task, like trying to follow the thread of a single conversation at the world's loudest party. You are training your ears to be surgical instruments, capable of finding a faint, vital signal in a world of overwhelming chaos. A unique and powerful brotherhood is forged in this high-pressure environment. You and the other trainees are the only ones on Earth who understand what you are going through. You study together late into the night, quizzing each other, running mock transmissions until you're all hoarse. Your shared heritage, once a reason for discrimination, is now the source of your elite status. You are a secret society, bound by a sacred trust and a classified vocabulary. The training culminates in a series of grueling field exercises, where you must use the code under the most realistic combat simulations the Marine Corps can devise. Finally, the day comes when you pass the final test. You are a code talker. You can now hear a string of English words and, in your mind, translate them into a stream of Navajo code faster than you can think. You have become the human radio you were meant to be. You and your graduating class are ready. You board the next transport ship bound for the Pacific, a new generation of secret weapons heading straight for the inferno of the island-hopping campaigns. The ship that carries you across the Pacific is part of a flotilla so vast it seems to cover the ocean from horizon to horizon. The scale of this war, the sheer industrial might of it, is something the first 29 could have barely imagined. When the ramp of your landing craft drops, it's not onto the jungle floor of Guadalcanal, but into the turquoise water of the Mariana Islands. The heat hits you like a furnace blast, and the tropical sun reflecting off the white sand is blinding. You are part of Operation Forager, the great Allied push across the Central Pacific in the summer of 1944. You're a small vital gear in a giant island-hopping machine, a strategy designed to seize one fortified island after another, turning them into unsinkable aircraft carriers for the B-29 bombers that will take the war to Japan west doorstep. You've heard whispers among the officers about the debates back home. Military strategists to this day debate the necessity of invading every single fortified island, with some arguing a leapfrogging strategy might have saved lives, while others maintain that securing them as air bases was non-negotiable. For you, knee-deep in seawater with bullets kicking up spray around you, the strategic debate is meaningless. Your only job is to get across this beach. This is Saipan, and it is a different kind of hell from what your predecessors faced. The Japanese have learned. They no longer try to annihilate you on the beaches. Instead, they've adopted a defense in depth. They let you come ashore, luring you into a meticulously prepared killing ground. The island is a fortress, a honeycomb of thousands of caves, pillboxes, and fortified ridges, all connected by a network of tunnels. The fighting is a brutal, claustrophobic slog, a yard-by-yard war of attrition against an enemy who is deeply entrenched, fanatically devoted, and sworn to fight to the last man. The battlefield is a chaotic, fragmented mess. Companies are cut off, platoons are pinned down, and the front line is a jagged, nonsensical scribble on a map. In this environment, your job is everything. You are the only thing holding it all together. The simulated static and explosions from your training at Camp Pendleton are a child's whisper compared to the reality. You press the handset to your ear, trying to block out the cacophony of real explosions and real screams, and you become a calm island of pure information. Your voice, speaking the language of your ancestors, is a constant, steady presence on the radio waves. You guide tanks toward enemy strongpoints, their cannons useless without your eyes. You coordinate with the terrifying flamethrower teams, calling out the Navajo word Beshiknali, iron blowers, to direct them toward the hidden mouths of caves. You become an angel of death and of life, calling in artillery strikes that obliterate machine gun nests and then, moments later, requesting medical evacuation for the wounded. The enemy isn't just the Japanese soldiers, it's the island itself. The heat is a physical presence, a suffocating blanket that never lifts. Your uniform is permanently soaked with sweat. The volcanic rock shreds your boots, and the razor-sharp coral on the beaches tears at your skin. And then, there's the thirst. There is never, ever enough clean water. You are issued 1 or 2 canteens for an entire day of brutal fighting in the crushing humidity. You see Marines, tough men who have faced down machine gun fire without flinching, collapse into babbling delirium from heat stroke. Water discipline is not a guideline. It's the first commandment of survival. You find yourself having long, elaborate daydreams about a cold glass of water. The battle for Saipan rages for 3 weeks, a continuous nightmare of close-quarters combat. Once it's finally declared secure, you are given a few days to recover before being loaded back onto a ship. Next stop, Tinian. Then, Guam. Each island is a new chapter in the same bloody story. The names and the terrain change, but the horror is a constant. The boy who was so nervous on the bus leaving Arizona is gone forever. In his place is a weary, hollow-eyed man who has learned to sleep in a muddy hole while artillery shells fly overhead. Your world has shrunk to the men in your platoon and the disembodied Navajo voice that answers you over the radio. The other Marines in your unit look at you with a kind of superstitious awe. They have no idea what you're saying into your radio, but they see the results. You speak a stream of what sounds like gibberish, and a few minutes later, a mortar pit that was tearing them to pieces goes silent. You listen intently to your handset, then shout a warning, and everyone takes cover just before an enemy counterattack boils out of the jungle. You are the human equivalent of a perfect Wi-Fi signal in the middle of a dead zone. They don't understand the technology, but they know it works, and they huddle close to you hoping to stay connected. As you stand on a ridge overlooking the smoldering remains of a battlefield on Guam, you take a moment to survey the devastation. You are exhausted in body and soul, but you are alive, and your shield of words has held, and you know with a grim certainty that there is another island over the horizon waiting its turn. You are on another ship, in another vast armada, but this time the mood is different. It's February 1945. The men around you are veterans now, their faces grim. The nervous energy of the earlier campaigns has been replaced by a quiet, fatalistic resolve. The green recruits are gone, burned away in the fires of Saipan and Paliliu. Everyone here is a survivor, and everyone knows that the place you are going is going to be the worst thing you have ever seen. The target is a tiny pork-chop-shaped island of volcanic rock and sand, just 750 miles from Tokyo. Its name is Jima. From the deck of the ship, it looks like a dead gray moonscape, dominated by the brooding silhouette of a dormant volcano at its southern tip, Mount Suribachi. The name of the island means Sulphur Island, and you can smell the faint, rotten egg stench of it on the wind, a foul breath from the hell that awaits you. The landing is a catastrophe unlike any you've yet endured. The naval bombardment, the most intense and prolonged of the entire Pacific War, has done almost nothing to the 21,000 Japanese defenders who are dug into a subterranean fortress of tunnels and blockhouses 16 miles long. As your landing craft hits the beach, you aren't met with the familiar crunch of coral sand, but with a soft, black volcanic ash. You leap from the ramp and sink up to your shins in the stuff. It's like trying to run through a nightmare of black snow. It offers no purchase, no stability. Every step is a struggle. The simplest act of digging a foxhole is impossible. The loose granular sand just slides back in as fast as you can scoop it out. Tanks and jeeps churn their wheels uselessly, getting bogged down, becoming perfect stationary targets. And the Japanese gunners, hidden in their reinforced concrete pillboxes on the slopes of Suribachi, have every single inch of this beach pre-sighted. They wait. They wait until the landing beaches are a clogged, chaotic mass of struggling men and mired vehicles. Then they open fire with everything they have. Mortars, artillery, machine guns, and rockets rain down in a perfectly coordinated, inescapable storm of steel. It is a meat grinder. The chaos is absolute, and in this maelstrom, all conventional methods of communication break down. Radio antennae are shredded by shrapnel, landlines are cut the moment they're laid, and cipher machines are far too slow and cumbersome to be of any use. In the heart of this inferno, you and 5 other Navajo code talkers are the 5th Marine Division's only hope of maintaining command and control. You hit the beach with the first waves, your 80-pound radio a lead weight on your back, and you get to work. For the next 48 hours, you do not stop. You don't sleep, you don't eat. You work in pairs in a shell crater, one of you shouting into the handset while the other scribbles down incoming messages, handing them to runners who sprint, hunched over, through the hail of fire. You are the central node, the living switchboard for the entire invasion. Military historians and veterans have long argued about the battle's true strategic value, questioning whether the horrific cost in lives was justified by Iwo Jima's use as an emergency landing strip for B-29s. In that moment, hunched in the black sand, All you know is that your orders are to take this island, and the only way to do that is to talk. The volume of traffic you handle is superhuman. In those first 2 days, as the fate of the invasion hangs by a thread, your team of 6 men transmits and receives over 800 messages. Not a single one is misunderstood. Not a single one has an error. You are a seamless, flawless conduit of information. Send tortoises to the base of the mountain. Need iron blowers at grid 7. Chicken hawks, hit the ridge. Each message is a burst of Dine Bizad, a whisper from home that moves men and machines, that unleashes the awesome power of the fleet's big guns onto a single troublesome pillbox, that directs a fresh platoon to plug a gap in the line. You are running the communications for the apocalypse, and your network never goes down. The Japanese, as always, are listening. They hear the constant chatter in your strange tongue, and it is a source of intense frustration for them. They know the Marines are coordinating with devastating efficiency, but the key to how they are doing it remains a complete mystery. Amidst the thunder of the battle, your code is a silent, invisible shield. At the end of that 48-hour period, you finally get a moment to rest. The beachhead is against all odds secure. The battle is far from over, but the crucial first phase has been won. It was won with the blood of thousands of Marines and with 800 whispers in a language born of the desert. The battle for Iwo Jima grinds on. The first chaotic, terrifying 48 hours are over, but the fight for the island has now entered a new phase, a slow, methodical, and soul-crushingly brutal crawl. You advance not by miles, but by feet. Every pillbox, every cave, every fortified ridge must be taken by men with rifles, grenades, and flamethrowers. Your work as a code talker continues unabated. You move with the forward command elements, a living, breathing link between the grunts at the front and the commanders in the rear. And you are always, always a target. The Japanese soldiers are not fools. They have learned over years of war that the man with the radio is the brain of the enemy unit. Kill the radio man and you create chaos. You learn to stay low, to move fast, to read the terrain not just for cover from bullets, but for angles that might hide you from a sniper's scope. The radio itself is a physical torment. The main TBX set weighs over 80 pounds when you include the battery and the hand-crank generator that powers it. You and your partner haul this monstrous thing through the loose black sand, up steep rocky ridges, and through ravines littered with the dead. While one of you transmits, the other has to turn the crank on the generator, a physically exhausting task that leaves your arms feeling like jelly. You are a two-man communications nexus and a walking bullseye, a fact that is never far from your mind. Yet amidst the constant fear and exhaustion, you work with a calm, focused efficiency that has begun to astound the officers around you. You are in a forward command post, which is just a glorified shell crater, a few days after the flag has been raised on Mount Suribachi. The battle for the northern part of the island is raging, and the command post is a hive of frantic activity. You're kneeling in the sand, relaying fire coordinates, your voice a calm stream of Navajo cutting through the percussive roar of the battle. Nearby, the 5th Marine Division signal officer, Major Howard Connor, is trying to use a standard field telephone. The line is crackling with static and the connection keeps cutting out. He slams the receiver down in frustration, his face a mask of grime and weariness. He glances over at you, watching as you effortlessly receive a complex message, translate it in your head, and hand the written intelligence to a waiting runner. He sees the speed, the clarity, the utter reliability of your communication. In a moment of exhausted, unfiltered honesty, he turns to another officer huddled in the crater and says the words that will echo through history. You overhear him, his voice gravelly but clear over the din. "Were it not for the Navajos," he says, with the flat certainty of a man stating a law of physics, "the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima." The words hang in the air for a moment, a stunning, absolute declaration. This isn't a flowery commendation written for a report. It's the truth, spoken from the heart of the hell that surrounds you, by the one man on the island who is in the perfect position to know. In that single sentence, all your work, all the risk, all the sacrifice is given a weight and a meaning that is as solid as the volcano behind you. It's the ultimate performance review, delivered on the deadliest job site in the world. Major Connor's statement is not an exaggeration. You've seen it with your own eyes. You've relayed the warnings that have saved platoons from being outflanked. You've called in the artillery that has broken the back of enemy counterattacks. You've guided the supply parties bringing precious water and ammunition to the front. Analysts still debate the precise casualty figures that can be attributed to the code talker's speed. But most estimates suggest their work saved thousands of Marine lives through timely warnings and support calls. You don't need an analyst to tell you that. You just need to look at the faces of the men in your company who are still breathing. You don't acknowledge the Major's comment. You simply give a terse nod and turn back to your radio. Another message is coming through. There is no time for praise. The job isn't done. Your quiet professionalism is its own statement. You are a United States Marine and this is your duty. The pride you feel is a silent, burning coal inside you. The language of your people, the sacred words of the Diné, is the unbreakable weapon that is conquering this island. And now, the whole world, or at least the part of it that matters, knows it. The Major's words of praise still echo in your mind, but they feel like they were spoken in another lifetime 1,000 miles away. Here, in the volcanic grit of your foxhole, there are no accolades or historical pronouncements. There is only the immediate, brutal present. Your radio goes silent for a moment. The urgent flurry of fire missions is complete. But the war doesn't stop just because you've stopped talking. You carefully place the handset back on its hook and your hand, without a conscious thought, goes to the cold steel of your M1 Garand. In that simple, automatic motion lies a fundamental truth of your existence here. You are a Marine first, a code talker second. That creed was hammered into you back at boot camp, and it's a lesson you live and relearn every single day. You are not a detached specialist, safe in a concrete bunker in the rear. Your office is here, on the front line, and it's an office you share with every other grunt on this godforsaken island. When you're not transmitting, your duties are the same as any other infantryman's. You pull your turn on watch. Long hours of gut-wrenching tension, staring into the suffocating darkness of a jungle night. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of a palm frond sends a jolt of pure adrenaline through you. Is it just the wind, a jungle creature? Or is it an enemy soldier moving like a phantom just feet from your position? You stand patrol, moving slowly and silently through terrain that is actively trying to kill you. Your senses on a razor's edge, your rifle held at the ready. And sometimes, when the radio is damaged or the signal is blocked by a ridge, you become the oldest and most vulnerable form of military communication, a runner. You are handed a map or a written order, and you have to sprint across open ground through a landscape pre-sighted by enemy mortars and machine guns to another command post a few hundred yards away. Those 100 yards feel like 1,000 miles, and you run with the desperate prayer of a man who knows his life is measured in seconds. This constant, jarring switch between two vastly different roles creates a unique and profound strain. Military sociologists still study the unique dual identity of the code talkers, examining the psychological stress of being both a highly specialized technician and a frontline infantryman simultaneously. One moment your brain is performing the intricate, high-level mental gymnastics of the code, a task requiring immense concentration and memory. The next, you are forced into the primal, instinctive world of close-quarters combat, your entire being focused on the simple, brutal calculus of killing or being killed. It's like being a neurosurgeon who is also required to be a firefighter, and you have to be ready to drop your scalpel and pick up an axe at a moment's notice. There are moments in the quiet lulls between the spasms of violence when your mind drifts back to the world you came from. You remember the teachings of the elders, the concept of Hoju, the central Navajo belief in balance, harmony, and beauty. It is a state of being in tune with the universe, of walking in beauty. This war is the antithesis of Hojo. It is the embodiment of chaos, ugliness, and profound spiritual imbalance. You are surrounded by death, and you are a dealer of death. You know, with a certainty that is woven into your very soul, that if you are fortunate enough to survive and return home, you will need healing. You think of the ancient ceremonies, the enemy way chants designed specifically to cleanse a warrior of the ghost sickness that comes from combat, to restore them to balance. The thought of that restoration, of one day walking in beauty again, is a small, fragile hope you guard in the deepest part of your heart. The men in your unit see this other side of you. They see you stand your watch, they see you run messages, they see you lay down fire when your position is being overrun. They know you're not just the radio guy. You earn their respect not just for the magical words you speak into a handset, but for the shared risk, the shared misery, and the shared courage of an ordinary rifleman. They may not understand your language, but they understand the universal language of a soldier who has their back. When the bullets are flying, that's the only language that matters. You finish cleaning your rifle, the practiced motions a familiar comfort. The radio sits beside you, a silent testament to one half of your life. The rifle in your hands is the other half. You don't know which one you will be called upon to use next, but you are ready for either. In a rare moment of quiet, huddled in the relative safety of a captured Japanese bunker, you find your mind drifting away from the immediate threats of snipers and mortars. You think about the words themselves. The code you carry in your head is not some static pre-printed list. It's a living thing, a language that has grown and evolved with the war. The original lexicon of 200 or so terms created back in that California classroom has more than tripled. As new weapons, new vehicles, and new tactics have appeared on the battlefield, the code has adapted right alongside them. A committee of fellow code talkers is now stationed permanently in Hawaii, their sole job to invent new terms and securely transmit these updates to you and the other men on the front lines. You reflect on the sheer artistry of the vocabulary, a secret poetry known only to you and your brothers. It's a dictionary that transforms the brutal, mechanical reality of war into a vast, symbolic landscape drawn from the natural world of the Deneta. You think of the sky. To an outsider, it's filled with American aircraft. To you, it's an aviary of deadly birds. The nimble fighter plane, weaving and darting, is a da-hiti-hai, a hummingbird. The dive bomber is still a guinea, a chicken hawk. The larger, heavier bombers are J-show buzzards, and the magnificent new B-29 Superfortress, the silver giant that flies higher and faster than anything else, is Atsabesh Lagai, the silver eagle. When you call in an airstrike, you are not directing machines. You are summoning a flock. The same poetic logic applies to the sea. You remember the original terms, Lotso, whale, for a battleship, and Beshlo, ironfish, for a submarine. This has been expanded. A sleek, predatory destroyer is a Kalo, a shark. An aircraft carrier, the mother of the flock, is simply and beautifully named Tsidini Yehai, which literally translates to bird carrier. You're taking the most advanced naval technology on the planet and reclassifying it according to a system your ancestors would have understood perfectly. Linguists and anthropologists still marvel at the cognitive process involved, debating whether the code talkers were simply translating or engaging in a complex act of cultural recontextualization for every single term. To you, it doesn't feel like translation. It feels like giving these strange metal objects their true names. Perhaps the most surreal and creative translations are for the weapons. A bomb, carried by the buzzards and chicken hawks, is an ayeshi, an egg. You call for an airstrike and you are asking the birds to lay their eggs on an enemy position. A hand grenade, the small, round, deadly thing you hold in your palm before throwing, is a nimasi, a potato. The imagery is so mundane, so domestic, it creates a jarring, almost comical contrast with the lethal reality of the object. It's a strange psychological cushion, turning instruments of death into items from a pantry. It's a language so poetic you feel it could make a military requisition form sound like a sacred chant. The code extends to everything. Military ranks are given names of respect and authority from your own culture. A captain is Baiso D, pig, possibly a bit of wry humor. A major general is Sonaki, star chief. Countries are renamed with descriptive visual tags. Great Britain is Tota, between the waters. Japan is still Behna Ali Tsosi, braided hair. You think of one of the most evocative terms you've learned, the name for the bomb bay doors on an aircraft, Jejo Kith. It means the gourd. The image is of a dried, hollow gourd used to carry seeds, the source of new life. In this new context, the gourd is a vessel for the eggs of destruction. It's a word of profound, chilling beauty. A perfect example of how your language can hold two opposite ideas in a single, elegant metaphor. It's the only language in the world where the sentence, "The silver eagle is opening its gourd to drop eggs on the iron hats," is a perfectly coherent and urgent military communication. As you finally close your eyes, trying to find a moment of restless sleep, your mind is a swirl of these words, a surreal dreamscape where hummingbirds fight sharks and warriors go into battle armed with potatoes. You are moving through a shattered landscape, a blasted stretch of jungle that separates your unit from the regimental command post. You're on a solo mission, a simple task to deliver a new set of radio frequencies. The battle has lulled, and an eerie, unnatural quiet hangs in the humid air, broken only by the buzz of insects and the distant, rhythmic pounding of naval guns. You round a collapsed wall of a sugar mill and find yourself face to face with a squad of Marines. But you don't recognize their unit patch, and their faces are new, taut with the fresh, undigested fear of recent arrivals to the front. They see you, and in that split second, you see what they see. They don't see a fellow Marine. They see your dark hair, your brown skin, your high cheekbones. In their exhausted, terrified, and racially conditioned minds, they see the face of the enemy wearing an American uniform. In an instant, half a dozen rifles are leveled at your chest. A young corporal with panic in his eyes screams, "Don't move, Jap!" The word hangs in the air, a punch to the gut. You freeze, your hands slowly rising. This is a danger that no training at Camp Pendleton could ever truly prepare you for. In this moment, the most immediate threat to your life is not an Imperial Japanese soldier, but a terrified, ignorant 19-year-old from a farm in Indiana. You are caught in the terrible paradox of your own mission's secrecy, the very thing that makes you so valuable. The fact that almost no one knows who you are or what you do is the very thing that might get you killed. You can't say, "I'm a Navajo code talker." The phrase is meaningless to them. It would sound like a trick, and even if they believed you, it would be a catastrophic breach of national security. This is not a unique freak occurrence. It's a known hazard of your job. Historians continue to catalog these incidents, debating whether they were tragic but understandable mistakes in the fog of war, or if they revealed a deeper, more pervasive racial prejudice within the armed forces at the time. Right now, as you stare down the barrels of your countrymen's rifles, the academic debate feels absurd. All you feel is the cold certainty that your face, the face of a Diné man, has marked you as the enemy in your own army. You do the only thing you can. You speak in slow, clear English. You tell them your name, rank, and serial number. You tell them to look at your dog tags. But they are hesitant, their trigger fingers still tight. You think of Corporal Jensen, the burly, red-haired sergeant from Texas who has been assigned as your personal bodyguard. He's waiting for you back at your platoon's position. The Marine Corps, having learned from a few near-fatal incidents on Guadalcanal, eventually started assigning white non-commissioned officers to shadow the code talkers. Jensen's job description is twofold. His primary duty is to protect you from the Japanese, but his unofficial and perhaps more important duty is to protect you from your fellow Americans. He is your voucher, your white shield in a segregated military, the man who can step in and say, "He's one of us." The bitter, humiliating irony that you require a white escort to validate your American identity is a constant, quiet shame. The sergeant of the squad that has you pinned down finally makes a decision. He's not convinced you're the enemy, but he's not convinced you're not. He orders his men to lower their rifles but tells two of them to escort you at gunpoint back to his company's command post. You endure the humiliating march, a prisoner of war in the wrong army. Other Marines stop and stare, their faces a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. You feel a burning anger, but you swallow it down. Anger will get you killed. When you finally reach their lieutenant, he, thankfully, is a veteran who has heard the rumors of a top-secret Native American communications unit. He makes a radio call, confirms your identity, and the situation is diffused with a flurry of embarrassed, half-hearted apologies. The young corporal who called you a Jap refuses to meet your eyes. You are released, and you make your way back to your own lines, your heart still hammering against your ribs. The encounter has left a cold knot in your stomach. It's a stark reminder that you are fighting on two fronts. You are at war with the Japanese Empire, and you are in a constant low-grade struggle against the ignorance of your own side. The code you speak keeps your brothers in arms safe, but you are left to wonder who is keeping you safe from them. The greatest danger you face today wasn't T from a sniper, S bullet, or a mortar shell. It was from the simple, terrifying fact that in the fog of war, the face of an American hero could be mistaken for the face of the enemy. The impossible has happened. The war is over. The news ripples through the ranks in waves of disbelief, then euphoria. The surrender of Japan, brought about by a terrifying new kind of bomb, means you have survived. You will not have to land on the shores of Japan itself. A battle that everyone predicted would be a suicidal bloodbath. You have walked through the fires of Saipan, Guam, Iwo Jima, and you have come out on the other side. A profound, bone-deep weariness is overtaken by a single electrifying thought. You are going home. The journey back across the Pacific is a dreamlike state of relief. But before you can step back into the life you left behind, there is one final, crucial piece of military business to attend to. You and the other Navajo from your unit are separated from the rest of the returning Marines. You aren't led to a parade ground for a final review, but to a small, windowless briefing room. The mood is not celebratory. An intelligence officer you've never seen before, a man with cold, serious eyes and a stack of official-looking documents, stands before you. He congratulates you on your service and your survival. Then his tone shifts. He explains that while the war with Japan is concluded, the world remains a dangerous place. He tells you that the Navajo Code, the weapon you have wielded for the past 3 years, is now considered one of the United States' most valuable and sensitive military assets. The High Command, he says, believes it may be needed again in a future conflict. And then he delivers the order that will define the next quarter century of your life. He informs you that your entire program, every aspect of it, is now classified at a level above top secret. You are being ordered under the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the Espionage Act to never speak of what you did. Not a single word. You cannot tell your parents why you were really recruited. You cannot tell your wife why you wake up screaming from nightmares about a radio handset. You cannot tell your future children about the time a general said you and your brothers won the battle for Iwo Jima. You are forbidden from telling anyone, even fellow Marines who were not in the program, that you were anything other than a standard radio operator. The term code talker doesn't even exist. As the officer speaks, he refers to you simply as communications personnel. Your unique heroic identity, forged in the heat of battle, is being officially erased. A heavy, suffocating silence falls over the room. The joyous relief of moments ago evaporates, replaced by a cold, leaden weight in your stomach. You have carried the 80-pound radio. You have carried the memories of fallen friends. You have carried the terror of combat. Now you are being asked to carry one more burden, a crushing, lifelong silence. Psychologists and historians still debate the long-term effects of this enforced silence, with many arguing it compounded the veterans' PTSD by isolating them from traditional support systems like family and community. In that room, you don't need a psychologist to tell you that. You feel the isolation beginning to wrap around you like a shroud. How do you heal from a wound you can't describe? This military order is also a direct assault on your cultural traditions. For the Diné, like for many warrior cultures, the telling of war stories was an essential part of the healing process. A warrior returned and in ceremony recounted his deeds, allowing the community to share the burden and help him find his way back to a life of peace and balance, back to Hoju. This order from the United States government forbids that. It cuts you off from your own people's path to healing. You understand the cold, hard logic of national security. You do not leave your sharpest sword lying out for a potential new enemy to examine. But that logical understanding does nothing to lessen the profound, personal pain of the command. You've been given the ultimate gag order. It's like being the star quarterback of a team that just won the championship, but you're forbidden from ever telling anyone you even know how to throw a ball. You take the oath. You sign the non-disclosure documents. You have given your country your youth, your courage, and your sacred language. Now, as your final act of service, you give it your silence. You walk out of that briefing room and into the disorienting sunshine of civilian life. You are free, but you are carrying a secret that is at once the source of your greatest pride and the cause of your deepest isolation. The war of gunfire and explosions is over, but a new war, a quiet, internal, and profoundly lonely one, has just begun. The long journey home is a slow, disorienting decompression. The train rocks you across a continent, and with every mile, the disciplined, violent world of the Marine Corps recedes, replaced by the sprawling, peaceful landscape of your own country. You step off the train and onto a bus, and the familiar red rock formations of the Dineta begin to appear on the horizon. The sight of them, so solid and unchanging, makes your heart ache with a feeling you can't quite name. When the bus finally sighs to a stop in the dusty town center, you see them, your family. Your mother's face, etched with 3 years of worry, breaks into a tearful smile. Your father clasps your shoulder, his grip firm, his eyes saying everything his mouth does not. They have come to welcome home their son, the Marine. They have no way of knowing they are greeting a national treasure. Back in the familiar, comforting circle of your family's hogan, the air thick with the smell of juniper smoke and roasting mutton, they ask you the questions you have been dreading. "What did you do in the war, my son?" your mother asks, her voice soft. You look into her loving, trusting eyes and you lie. "I was a radio man, Mama. I passed along messages." Your younger brother, his eyes wide with hero worship, asks, "Were you in big battles? Did you see Iwo Jima?" You give him a softened, censored version of the truth. "Yes, I was there. It was a tough fight. It was..." You cannot tell him that your voice was the unseen weapon that directed the fire and saved the men who raised the flag on Suribachi. Every question is a minefield. Every answer a carefully constructed deception. A wall is being built, brick by painful brick, between you and the people you fought so hard to come home to. The hero's welcome you secretly dreamed of in your foxhole never materializes, not just because of your vow, but because of the world you've returned to. Sociologists still examine the paradox of the code talker's return. They came back as heroes who had wielded their native language as a national treasure, only to find themselves in a society that still actively suppressed that same language and culture. You fought overseas for a nation that, in many ways, still treated you as a second-class citizen at home. You returned to Arizona to find you were still barred by state law from voting in the very elections that determined the course of the country you had just bled for. The irony is a constant, bitter taste in your mouth. The secret you carry is a restless ghost. One night you jolt awake from a vivid nightmare, shouting in your sleep, not in English, but in the clipped, urgent cadence of the code. "Ayeshi! Guinea! Eggs! Chicken hawk!" You're back on Saipan calling in an airstrike. Your wife is beside you, shaking you awake, her face terrified. She has no idea what those words mean. To her, it is just terrifying nonsense. You cannot explain it to her. You cannot tell her that you were just reliving the moment you saved a company of men from being overrun. You just hold her and tell her it was a bad dream, another brick in the wall. You see another Navajo veteran at the trading post, a man you served with on Guam. Your eyes meet across a display of canned goods. In that silent, shared glance, you exchange entire volumes of unspoken memory. The fear, the pride, the exhaustion, the crushing weight of the secret. You give each other a short, sharp nod. It's all you are allowed. You are brothers in a sacred, silent order. While other veterans join VFW posts and tell their war stories over beers, you remain quiet. You listen as men talk about the big battles, and you bite your tongue, the urge to say, "I was there, and this is what really happened," a physical pain in your chest. You are a silent observer of your own history. You try to slip back into the rhythms of your old life, herding sheep, mending fences, watching the sky. But the boy who left this place is gone. He was replaced by a man who carries a secret so profound that it isolates him from everyone he has ever known. You stand outside the hogan one night, looking up at the vast, star-dusted canopy of the desert sky. It is the same sky you looked at as a boy, but the comforting silence of the land you love now feels different. It feels like a reflection of the silence you have been commanded to keep. This is your homecoming, not a parade, but a quiet, lifelong sentence of secrecy. The years after the war pass in a blur of forced normalcy. It's the 1950s. You have a job, you have a family, You have built a life on the foundations of the one you left behind. To the outside world, you are a success story, a veteran who has come home and readjusted. But every night when the house is quiet and the world is asleep, you are back at war. A car backfiring in the street sends you scrambling for cover before you even realize what you were doing. Your heart hammering against your ribs, the phantom smell of cordite and burnt diesel filling your nostrils. The sound of a low-flying airplane makes the hair on your arms stand up, and for a split second you are a terrified 20-year-old again, scanning the skies for a guinea, a chicken hawk, on a strafing run. The war is not over. It has simply moved inside you. In this era, there is no language for your suffering. The term post-traumatic stress disorder has not been invented yet. There is only shell shock or combat fatigue, vague, dismissive terms that carry a heavy stigma of personal weakness. The common wisdom, from doctors to family members, is that you should just get over it. You are a man, a Marine, a hero. You are expected to be strong, to bury the past and get on with your life. There are no government-funded counseling programs, no support groups, no therapists who understand the unique landscape of combat trauma. You are left to fight the fiercest battles of your life entirely alone, in the silent, haunted terrain of your own mind. Your particular burden is compounded by the oath of secrecy you took. Other veterans, as traumatized as they may be, can at least find solace in shared experience. They can gather at the VFW hall and talk, however haltingly, about the horrors of Normandy or the Ardennes. They can find a reflection of their own pain in the eyes of their comrades. You cannot. The defining moments of your war, the experiences that forged your trauma, are classified. You cannot speak of crouching in a foxhole on Iwo Jima, your voice the only link for 1,000 desperate men. You cannot explain the terrible weight of knowing that a single misspoken word could lead to 100 deaths. Your pride and your pain are both state secrets. This enforced silence is a poison that seeps into every corner of your life, isolating you from your wife, your children, and your community. Western medicine has nothing for you. A doctor might give you pills to help you sleep, but they do nothing to quiet the ghosts. It is your family, your elders, who finally offer you a path forward. They see the darkness in your eyes, the way you jump at loud noises, the profound distance that separates you from the world of the living. They recognize the symptoms not from a medical textbook, but from centuries of cultural wisdom. They know you are a warrior who has been infected by the ghost of the enemy, that your spirit has been thrown violently out of balance. They tell you that you must have a ceremony. You need a nida'a, the ancient enemy way ceremony, designed for the sole purpose of cleansing a returning warrior. Reluctantly at first, you agree. The ceremony is a multi-day affair, a powerful immersion in the spiritual traditions of your people. It is a world away from the sterile doctor's office. There are sacred chants that go on for hours, intricate sand paintings that are created and destroyed, and purification rites that connect you back to the earth. Here, in the circle of your community, you are finally given permission to speak, not of the classified code, but of the killing, the fear, and the death that you witnessed. The ceremony works to sever the spiritual connection to the trauma, to restore you to the world of the living, to bring you back into Hoju. Modern therapists still study the experiences of veterans like the Code Talkers, debating the complex interplay between universal combat trauma and culture-specific methods of healing and recovery. For you, the ancient rituals of your people provide a profound healing that modern science simply could not. The memories don't disappear, but their power to harm you is diminished. You learn to carry them, rather than be carried by them. The war is finally, truly, beginning to end. Time, the great healer, begins its slow work. The years tick by. The sharp, jagged edges of your trauma, softened by ceremony, and the deep resilience of your spirit begin to smooth over. They become a part of the landscape of who you are, like the ancient weathered mesas of your homeland. Still there, still massive, but no longer a place of active violence. You have survived the war, and now you must survive the peace. You have a family to raise, a future to build. You pour the discipline and fortitude the Marine Corps drilled into you into the simple, profound act of living. You, and many of your fellow Code Talkers, take advantage of one of the few tangible benefits the government offered: the GI Bill. It is an opportunity for education that would have been almost unthinkable for a young Diné man before the war. You enroll in a university, sitting in classrooms and learning about engineering, or agriculture, or education. The irony is never lost on you. The same government whose schools once tried to beat your language out of you is now paying for your college degree. Economists and historians still debate the long-term impact of the GI Bill on the Navajo Nation, with some seeing it as a powerful tool for advancement, and others as a catalyst for cultural shifts that moved people away from traditional lifeways. For you, it is a ladder. You climb it and you use your new knowledge to help your people, becoming a teacher, a rancher, an artist, or a leader in the tribal government. But even in this new, peaceful life, the secret is a constant, silent passenger. You are at a community meeting, listening to a debate about grazing rights, and your mind is suddenly ambushed by a memory of a desperate radio call for reinforcements on Guam. You are teaching your son how to hunt, and the sharp crack of the rifle echoes the sound of a sniper's shot that you can never forget. You live two lives in one body: the quiet, respectable family man the world sees, and the haunted, heroic young warrior that only you know exists. The vow of silence holds. For some of you, the past doesn't just echo, it reaches out and pulls you back in. One day in the early 1950s, a formal-looking letter with a government postmark arrives. Your heart sinks. The Marine Corps is recalling you to active duty. There is a new war in a place called Korea. Your skills, the secret language you have tried so hard to put behind you, are needed once more. You have to say goodbye to your wife and children, leave the life you've carefully rebuilt, and step back into the world of secret communications. It's the job you can never truly quit. Some of your brothers are even called upon years later for brief secret assignments during the early days of the conflict in Vietnam. When you finally return for good, you dedicate yourself to your community. The skills you learned under fire, leadership, grace under pressure, a profound sense of duty, make you a natural and respected elder. You help lead the Navajo Nation through a period of immense change, fighting for sovereignty, for better schools, for the rights of your people. You become a hero to your community for a second time, for reasons they can actually see and understand. You and the other code talkers are a silent fraternity, bound by an experience no one else can fathom. You support each other, help each other's families, and communicate in the quiet, knowing glances of men who have shared a profound, unspeakable truth. You live a life of quiet dignity. Your children grow up, and you become a grandfather. You tell your grandchildren stories of the old ways, you teach them the sacred language, but there is a great gaping hole in the center of your own story that you can never fill. They know you were a Marine. They know you fought in the Great War. They are proud of you for that. But they have no idea of the true nature of your service. They cannot possibly imagine that the gentle, loving grandfather they see before them was once a secret weapon, whose words, spoken in the very language he now teaches them, helped to save the world. You watch the sun set over the Chusca Mountains, and you wonder if you will go to your grave with your greatest story untold. It is 1968. The world is a different planet from the one you fought to defend. America is a nation convulsing, torn apart by a new, unpopular war in Vietnam, by protests in the streets, and by the struggle for civil rights. You are a man in your 40s now, a grandfather. Your own children are grown. The war is a distant country in your past, a locked room in the house of your memory. The vow of silence you took has become a part of you, a permanent feature of your character, like a scar you no longer notice. You have lived with the secret for 23 years, longer than you had lived without it. You assume, with a quiet resignation, that you will carry it to your grave. Then, one unremarkable Tuesday, a letter arrives in the mail. It's a thin, official-looking envelope with a government return address. You open it with no particular sense of anticipation. It's probably just a bureaucratic notice about your veterans' benefits. Inside is a single sheet of paper, a memo filled with the dry, impersonal language of bureaucracy. You scan the page and a single phrase leaps out at you. The program relating to the use of the Navajo language for battlefield communications has now been declassified. You read it again, and a third time. The words seem unreal, alien. A quarter century of enforced sacred silence. A vow that has shaped your entire adult life has just been dissolved by a memo. There is no fanfare, no press conference, no national announcement. The declassification of one of the most brilliant and successful military secrets of the Second World War is a quiet, administrative act, buried in the noise of a turbulent era. Your story is released not with a triumphant shout, but with the dry rustle of a file being closed in a forgotten archive. Military historians debate the precise reason for the 1968 declassification, with some citing the obsolescence of the code in the age of digital encryption, while others point to a changing social climate and a growing interest in Native American history. To you, the reason is secondary. The only thing that matters is the result. You are free. The lock on the door has been unbolted. That evening, you gather your family. Your wife, who has lived for decades with the silent, wounded parts of you she could never understand. Your children, who know you only as a quiet, hard-working father who was once a Marine. Your grandchildren, who see you as a gentle old man. You take a deep, shuddering breath, a breath you feel like you've been holding since 1945, and you begin to speak. You tell them everything. You tell them about the locked classroom in California and the impossible task of turning a language of beauty into a language of war. You tell them the secret names of things, Che Dagahi for a tank, Nimasi for a potato-shaped grenade. You tell them of the landing on Guadalcanal, of the hell of Saipan, of the 800 messages in the first 2 days on Iwo Jima. You tell them about Major Howard Connor's words, the words you have held in your heart like a secret treasure for 23 years. As you speak, you watch their faces. You see their expressions shift from confusion to disbelief, to a dawning, profound sense of awe. They are finally seeing you, the complete you, for the first time. The man they thought they knew is being transformed before their eyes into a figure of history. Your nightmares, your sudden silences, your aversion to loud noises, all the mysterious, painful parts of you finally click into place for them. When you finish, there is a long silence, filled not with the emptiness of secrets, but with the weight of revelation. Your oldest son, a grown man with a family of his own, simply says, "Dad, why did you never tell us?" You look at him and reply, "I wasn't allowed to." The simplicity of the answer is devastating. The freedom to speak is intoxicating, but it is laced with a deep, undeniable bitterness. You think of your own parents who died never knowing the truth of their son's service. You think of the long, lonely years when a single shared story might have eased the burden. The recognition has come, but it has come too late for too many. The silence has been broken, but its echoes will remain forever. The years following the declassification are a slow, steady crescendo. What started as a trickle of local newspaper articles gradually swells into a stream of books, documentaries, and academic papers. Your story, the story of the Code Talkers, begins to take root in the American consciousness. You are an old man now. Your hair is silver, your gait is slower, and the faces of the young men you fought with are ghosts that walk with you daily. Many of them, in fact, are gone, having passed away in the long, quiet decades of peace, never living to see their secret story become a public legend. You have made your peace with the silence, with the idea that your service would be its own reward. Then, in the year 2000, something remarkable happens. After years of tireless work by your children, historians, and advocates, the United States Congress passes the Code Talker Recognition Act. A year later, you find yourself on a modern jet airliner, a Silver Eagle of a kind you could never have imagined, flying to Washington, D.C. You, the boy from the reservation who was once forbidden from speaking his own language in a government school, have been summoned to the very heart of that government to be honored for that language. You walk with your family through the streets of the capital, a city of immense marble monuments and manicured lawns, a world away from the volcanic ash and red dust that defined your youth. You stand in the magnificent, cavernous space of the Capitol Rotunda, the weight of history pressing down from the great dome above. The air is thick with a formal reverence, the quiet clicks of camera shutters echoing on the marble floors. You are surrounded by men in dark suits, senators, generals, the President of the United States himself. You look over at the other men standing beside you. Of the original 29 code talkers who created the code from scratch, only a handful of you are left. You see their faces, weathered maps of long and difficult lives, and in their eyes, you see the same mixture of profound pride and deep, sorrowful memory that you feel in your own heart. President George W. Bush stands at a podium and speaks your name. He tells the assembled dignitaries and the nation watching on television about your courage, your sacrifice, and the unique genius of the Unbreakable Code you helped create. An honor guard Marine in a crisp dress blue uniform approaches and places a heavy gold medal in your hands. It is the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honor the nation can bestow. As your fingers close around it, you feel the impossible weight of the moment. It is validation, recognition, and an apology, all cast in 2.5 ounces of precious metal. In this moment of triumph, a complex thought surfaces. Public policy analysts often point to the Code Talker Recognition Act of 2000 as a landmark, but debate continues on whether such belated honors can ever truly compensate for decades of neglect and withheld benefits. The medal is beautiful, but it cannot bring back the men who died without ever knowing this day would come. Then comes the most surreal moment of all. As part of the ceremony, you and another of the surviving originals are asked to give a demonstration. In the solemn, echoing hall of American power, you are handed a microphone. You look at your old friend, and a silent, shared memory passes between you. You take a breath, and you speak the words. The sacred, ancient sounds of Diné Bizad fill the rotunda. You transmit a simple message, the same one you sent in the heat of battle so many times. The Marines have landed. Your friend listens, and with a voice still steady after all these years, he translates it perfectly into English. The audience of politicians and generals is spellbound, witnessing a living piece of history, a weapon of words that has lost none of its power. As the applause thunders through the hall, you are not thinking about the praise or the cameras. You are thinking of the brothers who are not standing beside you. The ones who fell on Saipan. The ones who died of old age in Arizona. The ones who carried the secret to their graves. This medal, you know, is for them. You have finally received the hero's welcome you were denied more than half a century ago. The journey that began in fear and secrecy on a dusty reservation has ended here, in glory, in the heart of the nation you served. The vow of silence has been replaced by a chorus of thanks. It only took them 60 years, but they finally remembered. In the quiet twilight of your life after the grand ceremonies in Washington are over, and the gold medal is a heavy, tangible memory stored in a wooden box, you begin to notice the most profound and unexpected consequence of your long, silent war. The true legacy of your service is not happening in the halls of power or in the pages of history books. It is happening right here, at home, in the classrooms and communities of the Navajo Nation. You sit on your porch, watching your great-grandchildren play, and you contemplate the greatest irony of your entire existence. You think of yourself as a small boy in a cold, sterile government boarding school. The bitter taste of soap still a phantom in your mouth, a punishment for speaking the only language you knew. The official policy of the United States government for 100 years was assimilation, a polite word for the systematic destruction of your culture and the eradication of your language. They did everything in their power to make your tongue extinct. And yet, in their moment of greatest desperation, they came to you, begging for that same savage tongue. They needed it, they weaponized it, and in doing so, they inadvertently saved it. This is the beautiful, unforeseen result you now see unfolding all around you. Before your story was known, the Navajo language, like so many indigenous languages, was slowly losing ground. The younger generation, immersed in American television and pop culture, was beginning to see it as the language of the past, the talk of old folks, irrelevant in a modern world. English was the language of jobs, of progress, of the future. But the declassification of your story changed everything. Suddenly, Diné Bizad was not just a language, it was a superpower. It was the unbreakable code that had baffled the enemy and helped win the greatest war in human history. Your language had a heroic, almost mythical new status. Linguists and educators still debate the most effective strategies for language revitalization, but many point to the code talker legacy as a perfect case study in how a language's prestige can directly impact its survival. Your story made your language a source of immense pride. It made it cool. It gave young people a powerful, compelling reason to want to learn it, to connect with it, to claim it as their own. You see the tangible effects every day. You visit a local school, not the forbidding institution of your youth, but a modern, community-run school, and you walk into a Navajo language immersion classroom. The walls are covered in charts and drawings with Navajo words. A group of 5-year-olds are enthusiastically learning the names of animals, the same words you once used to identify enemy warships and fighter planes. The sound of your language being spoken with joy and enthusiasm by a new generation is the sweetest music you have ever heard. You hear news that makes you chuckle with delight. The blockbuster movie Star Wars has been meticulously dubbed into Navajo. You try to imagine Darth Vader threatening Luke Skywalker in the flowing, tonal cadences of your ancestors, C-3PO complaining, R2-D2 beeping. It is a wonderful, surreal testament to the language's vitality, a brilliant project to connect it to the modern world of the young. Your role in life has changed one last time. You are no longer a soldier, no longer a silent veteran. You are an ambassador for your language. You are invited to speak at schools and community gatherings, the medal sometimes displayed proudly on your chest. You, who were once sworn to absolute secrecy, now have a duty to tell your story. You look into the faces of the children, and you tell them that the language their grandparents speak is precious. You tell them it is not a relic of the past, but a source of strength, a gift that is uniquely theirs. You tell them how it shielded thousands of men and helped change the world. You have become a guardian of the language you once used as a sword. This, you realize, is your final and most important mission. The code has come home. It has been decommissioned as a weapon of war and recommissioned as a tool of cultural survival, a gift to be passed down for all the generations to come. Time, which was once your enemy on the battlefield, measured in the frantic seconds it took to transmit a message, has become a slow, inexorable river, carrying away the heroes of your youth. For years, you have watched as the names of your brothers, the men who sat beside you in the classroom at Pendleton and crouched beside you in the foxholes on Iwo Jima, have appeared in the obituary columns. One by one, the silent fraternity has been dwindling, its members answering a final, quiet roll call. Each loss is a fresh pain, another piece of your shared, secret history turning to memory. Then, in the summer of 2014, the news arrives that you have known was coming, but which still hits with the force of a physical blow. Chester Nez, at the age of 93, has passed away. A deep collective sadness settles over the Navajo Nation and over the country. He was not just another veteran, not just another code talker. He was the last of the original 29, the last living man who was in that locked room in 1942. The last man who could speak, from direct personal memory, of the birth of the code. With his passing, a door to the past has swung shut and locked forever. His life was a perfect embodiment of the entire code talker journey. You think of him as a boy, punished in the boarding schools for speaking Navajo, only to be recruited by the Marines for that very same skill. You picture him as a young man, huddling with the other 28, creatively and brilliantly weaving a weapon out of the words of your people. You remember him on the front lines of the Pacific on Guadalcanal, Bougainville, Guam, his voice a calm, steady lifeline in the chaos of combat. You think of his silent return, the long, difficult decades of carrying the secret, the psychological wounds, and the quiet dignity with which he built a life. And you remember the joy and vindication in his eyes when, as an old man, he finally received the Congressional Gold Medal. His life was the story of all of you, written in a single remarkable chapter. In his final years, Chester Nez undertook one last mission. He who had been sworn to a lifetime of silence decided to speak. He co-authored a memoir, a book simply titled Code Talker, ensuring that a detailed first-person account of the program's creation would exist for all time. It was a final, powerful act of reclamation, a defiance of the secrecy that had defined so much of his life. He took the story that had been locked inside him and made it a permanent gift to the world. His passing underscores a profound challenge for those who seek to preserve the past. Historians and preservationists continue to grapple with the challenge of documenting oral histories, debating how to balance personal memory with official records, a challenge made all the more acute with the passing of the last primary sources like Nez. With him gone, the story moves from living memory to documented history. His funeral is an event of national significance. The flags in his home state of New Mexico are ordered to fly at half-staff. The Marine Corps provides a full honor guard, their rifle volleys echoing over the hills of the reservation. His casket is draped in the flag of the country he served with such quiet valor. It is a powerful, poignant scene, a perfect fusion of ancient Navajo tradition and the highest honors of the United States military. It is the loud, public, and deeply respectful farewell that was denied to so many of his brothers. You reflect on that group of 29 young men, stepping onto a bus in the spring of 1942, leaving everything they knew for a world at war and a mission they couldn't possibly have understood. Now, the journey of that original brotherhood is finally complete. The last of those young shepherds has been brought home to rest. It is a moment of deep sadness, but not of despair. For the legacy of Chester Nez and the other 28 originals is not one of an ending, but of a powerful and enduring beginning. They are gone, but their story is now immortal. The mission to be invisible, to be a whisper on the wind, is long over. Their final lasting legacy is to be remembered forever. The voices of the first are now silent, but the echoes of what they did will never fade. The voices of the first are silent now, having passed from living memory into the quiet realm of history. And here you are, back in your own time, sitting in the soft glow of a screen in the 21st century. You hold a small, sleek device in your hand that connects you to the entire world. A device that contains more computing power than existed on the entire planet during the Second World War. Your life, your finances, your most private conversations are all protected by codes, by layers of encryption so complex they are functionally invisible. Our world is built on a foundation of secrets, just as theirs was. But our secrets are protected by a very different kind of language. When you send a secure message or log into your bank, your information is shielded by something like the Advanced Encryption Standard. It is a code born of pure mathematics, a fortress built of algorithms, prime numbers, and computational difficulty. It is a language of machines, for machines. Its strength lies in a cold, brutal logic so complex that it would take the fastest supercomputer imaginable billions of years to guess the key. It is powerful, efficient, and utterly inhuman. You have journeyed with the code talkers, and now you can see the profound difference. Their code was the exact opposite. It was a warm, living, breathing thing, born not of algorithms, but of culture. Its strength was not in mathematics, but in memory, metaphor, and the subtle tonal nuances of the human voice. In the world of cryptography, there is a concept known as a one-time pad, a cipher that is, in theory, perfectly, mathematically unbreakable. The Navajo code, in its own organic way, was the closest thing to a one-time pad of the mind that has ever existed. With its multiple word choices for common letters, and its reliance on the shared cultural context of its speakers, it was a system of near-infinite, unmappable randomness to an outsider. The key to the code wasn't a number or an algorithm that could be stolen or reverse-engineered. The key was a Navajo childhood. To break the code, you would have had to have grown up in the silent, sun-baked canyons of the Deneta. This is the enduring lesson of the forgotten archives, the echo that resonates from their story into our digital age. Our modern world of secrets is fragile. A single software bug, a stolen password, a clever phishing email, and the mathematical fortress can be breached. Cybersecurity experts today still debate the future of encryption, with some fearing the rise of quantum computing could break current standards, forcing a search for new, conceptually different methods of securing information. In that uncertain future, the story of the code talkers serves as a powerful reminder that the most robust security systems are not always the most complicated. Sometimes they are the most human. So what is the final legacy of these men? It is a story of beautiful, powerful ironies. It is the story of a nation that tried to silence a language, only to be saved by it. It is the story of how the world's most technologically advanced military, in its moment of greatest need, had to turn to the ancient oral wisdom of an indigenous people to survive. It is the story of how a small group of young men considered second-class citizens in their own country used their heritage as a shield to protect the very soldiers who in another context might have looked down on them. Their story is a testament to the idea that diversity is not a weakness, but a source of unforeseen and world-changing strength. The whispers that began in the desert wind became the unbreakable voice of victory, and in their long-delayed telling, they have become a timeless lesson in courage, resilience, and the quiet, enduring power of a people and their language. And so, our journey through the archives comes to a gentle close for tonight. The echoes of the battles have faded, the voices on the radio have fallen silent, and all that remains is the deep, quiet peace of the desert night sky under which this incredible story first began. You can let the details begin to soften now, allowing the narrative to recede like a distant tide, leaving behind only the lasting impression of courage and the profound beauty of a language that became a shield. The weight of the history you have heard can now be set down, and you can allow your mind to drift away from the past, back into the gentle stillness of your own quiet room. The story is now a part of you, a piece of knowledge to be carried effortlessly, a reminder of the extraordinary secrets hidden within ordinary lives. Let the soft hum of the fan or the silence of your home be the only sound you hear. Let your breathing slow and feel the tension of the day release its hold. There are no more orders to transmit, no more battles to be won. There is only the calm, welcoming darkness, and the promise of rest. The archives are now closed. All is well.